y'all, welcome and welcome back and welcome to another video where I get terrified by stories you guys have sent in to me. Listen, I want you guys to know that I hear you. I know you want longer follower storytime videos and I am here to deliver that. So next week we are going to have at minimum a 1 hour long episode of me reading your guys' scary stories. I am super excited for that and I hope it's something we can do quite often because I know you guys will love it and I'm gonna love it as well. Now, if you have any stories you want for me to read, please send them to the email below. I do already have the stories picked out for that hour-long video, but I do 1 or 2 of these videos every week. So please send in those stories and I would love to read them on here. I feel like I skipped steps. Oh, I'm Morgan. If you're new here, we do spooky stuff. Obviously, I read scary stories you guys send in to me and that email's linked below to send them to. We talk about scary movies, scary books, folklore, my own personal scary experiences. It's a fun time, and if that sounds really cool with you, I would love to have you here. Like I said, please check below for all of my other social medias and where to send stories and all that stuff. I feel like I'm getting very off track. I just filmed a really long video about Terrifier 3, and I'm like hype. So let's get into it. Let's utilize that energy and read some stories. All right, let's get started. I love your channel, and your cats are adorable. Pete. You want to say hello? So usually when someone mentions my cats in a video, I hold up Pete to the camera so she can say hi. She's really mad at me because she knocked my tripod down earlier and I said, hey, please don't knock my tripod down. So I tried to like pick her up just now and she bit me really hard. So we're not going to do that. Obviously she wants nothing to do with me and I respect the boundary. I will adhere to it. There are a lot of stories from when I was younger that I can't explain. So I was excited when I found your channel. I'll only tell a couple here, but if you want to hear more, I can send you those too. Yes. Just a little bit of background, all these stories come from the same house and happened when I was between the ages of 7 and 12. When I was around 7 years old, my dad left on business trips quite often, and since I was 7, I would sleep in bed with my mom whenever he was gone. My parents' room was rather large. There was the main part of the room where the bed sat, and then there were 2 cutoffs separated by a wall. They turned one of those cutoffs into the bathroom, and the other held a TV, an old leather couch which faced the TV, and a matching leather chair which faced the bed. During one of these nights that I slept in my parents' room, I had woken up. To my memory, it was roughly 3 in the morning. My mouth and throat were dry, and the cup that I had on the nightstand was empty, which was strange because I remember filling it before I went to bed. I didn't think too much of it and grabbed the cup and filled it with water from the bathroom before returning back to the bed. I was laying down on the side of the bed farthest from the cutoffs. I drank that water and laid down, but I heard whispering. It was deep and gravelly, comparable to an old smoker. I couldn't make out what was being said, but it sounded like whatever was being said was being repeated. For a little bit, I just sat there and tried to pretend like nothing was happening, but it was getting louder and louder, so I shifted to look over my shoulder and look around to see what was making the noise. I look over at the cutout with the leather couch and chair, and in this chair I see a human-shaped shadow that was sitting with its arms up on the chair. I immediately shot back down, squeezing my eyes shut, but as the whispering got louder, it sounded like it was saying kill. As I mustered the courage to sit back up, the talking stopped, but I didn't pay any attention to the cutoff. I shook my mom awake, and when she finally woke up, I told her that there was something in that chair. But I looked back and nothing. She looked over as well, and she said that I must have had a bad dream. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, and I couldn't sleep alone for years after, often having recurring nightmares of being chased by something I couldn't see in dark hallways. I haven't had those nightmares since I was around 12. Once my dad got back, I still slept in that room with them. He offered for me to sleep on the couch. It sat next to the chair, but I was afraid to sleep there. I usually slept on the other side of the bed, so I couldn't see the chair. I grew up in rural Indiana, and I lived right beside of lots of cornfields. They went on for miles and miles, and a lot of the roads that lead away from my neighborhood go through the cornfields. I always hated these fields. They creeped me out to my very core. I often took my dog out at night, and he wouldn't go to the bathroom unless I walked him down to the bottom of the yard, which was right next to a field. One night I heard some kind of animal in that field. I tried to write it off as a coyote, but it really sounded weird, and it slowly got worse. It felt like I was getting farther away from the coyote than I originally thought it was. I felt stuck, like my feet were stuck in cement. Something was trying to get me to come into that cornfield. I ran back to my house with my dog and went back inside without my dog going to the bathroom. I tried to forget it, but it bothered me a lot, and the next morning there were vultures circling. My dad made an offhanded comment saying that something along the lines of, "Look at the vultures, something must have died," which made me think of the night before. I've also had various experiences with seeing things in the fields or hearing strange things. The last story for this time, and also the one that has stuck with me the most. When I was 9 years old, my mom and dad had to work, but me and my older brother, who were 13 at the time, were on fall break from school, so we stayed home. We were supposed to do chores, but there weren't very many, so we were playing games. At around noon, we started to do our chores, and just as we were finishing the laundry, we heard something that sounded like scratching where the garage door was in our house. The two of us were already upstairs, which is where both of our rooms were, so we went to my older brother's room and locked the door. We sat there for a few minutes before my brother realized that he had left the phone downstairs. We snuck downstairs, hiding from any windows that we could stay out of sight, and we grabbed the phone before sneaking back upstairs. We returned to his room and looked at the door again. We sat in there and called our mom, to which she didn't answer, and also our dad, to which he also did not answer. All the while, the scratching is still happening. After a while, the scratching moved to where the front door was, and the both of us were getting very scared. He opened the window in his room, and there was a screen that couldn't be opened. He grabbed a pair of scissors and explained to me that if the noise was trying to get in, and they got inside, that he would cut open the screen and we would have to jump from the second story. He told me to run to the neighbor's house as fast as I could with or without him, which at 9 years old scared me to death, and honestly still does. We sat in the room for 2 hours while the scratching moved around the house, but it always stayed around where the entrances were, whether that be doors or windows. After a couple of hours, the scratching just stopped, and my dad called us back. He asked what was going on, and we asked if anyone was supposed to be coming to the house that day, to which he said no. We told him about the scratching, and he said that it was probably just an animal, just in case, to stay in my brother's room and keep the door locked. We did, and he gave me one of his mini sketchbooks, and we sat on the little twin-size bed drawing together until our parents came home. Nothing like this ever happened again, and me and my brother both refuse to talk about it to this day. Another thing is that me and my brother are a lot closer to each other than either of us are to either of our parents or to our little brother. While I think that is due to many things, in my opinion, this is one of the many reasons. These are just a couple of the stories I have, and I'm willing to share more if you want. But if you know what any of these are, please share. I've told all of these stories to my friends over the years, and all of them agree that there was almost no explanation that made any sense. Another thing I briefly mentioned in the second story is that I always got a heavy feeling during these experiences, like something was pushing down on my shoulders trying to keep me from moving. Lastly, these things hardly ever happened when my parents were present. Thank you for reading, and if you have any advice or suggestions, I'm open to pretty much anything. I do have thoughts and advice, so let's get into it. Okay, I want to touch on the thing that was seen in that chair first because I don't think it's connected. I think that was an entity, whether it be good or bad. I do think it's weird that suddenly the water cup was empty, but I think that was just something passing through. Depending on if anything like that ever happened again, and I guess we'll know whenever more stories get sent in, I don't really think that was anything connected. Now, however, the thing, you know, making noise outside of the house and in the cornfield, I think is the exact same thing, and I don't think it's anything good. To keep it away, I recommend putting some sort of iron if you can get it outside of your house. At the very least, I would get some black salt and line the windows and door frames with it around your house if you can get away with doing that, and maybe do a cleansing of your house before that. Always do cleansings before, or you're essentially just keeping anything bad in your house. It's like you lined their exits, so you're just chasing them around the house with whatever you're cleansing with, and it's not going to end well. But for black salt, you can buy it. You can also make it. Whenever I make it, I use just regular salt. I use some ash from incense that I've burned. It's usually rosemary. I add in some rosemary, some charcoal, and eggshell is how I make mine, give or take. So you could do that and just line a little bit up at the top, keep it away from pets, and yeah, that's what I recommend. But I think those two are definitely connected. All right, let's get into another one. We live in the second-story condo in Surfside Beach, South Carolina. Our condo is on the back side of the building we live in, and our screened-in balcony looks over a small grassy area surrounded by overgrown bushes. Right on the other side of the bushes is a large dirt lot, but really it just has a few, like 20 feet mounds of dirt and a few junk piles. It's dark and extremely creepy at night. However, my daughter's experience happened during the day. One day when I was at work, my daughter was sitting in the living room watching YouTube videos. She started to hear a dog barking and said it sounded like it was right outside, almost as if it was sitting in the grass looking straight up at our balcony and just barking. She noticed that it sounded off though, almost mechanical, not like a real dog. It continued for a couple of minutes, 3 barks, and then a pause, and then the exact same 3 barks over and over again. She wondered who was out there with the dog and why they're letting it bark and bark and bark. She decided she was going on the balcony and to look. As she stood up to go open the door, she got a really bad feeling. She sat back down and put her earbuds in. Still feeling very strange about the situation, she waited for a couple minutes and then removed one of the earbuds. The barking had stopped, and it was eerily quiet. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right. The first thought that came to her mind was a walker. As soon as I'm walking through the door after I got home, she told me what happened. I told her it was good that she trusted her intuition and didn't go outside. 3 days later, she and I were discussing the situation again because she was still a bit freaked out. All of a sudden, there were 3 barks right outside, mechanical, just like she'd experienced. I ran to her sliding glass door, opened it, and looked down to see who was down there. However, as soon as I opened that door, it stopped, and there was nothing. No person, no dog. There's no way a person walking their dog, or even just a dog, could have walked or ran away without me seeing them. There was literally nothing, or no one out there. We haven't heard it since that day, thankfully. It was definitely unsettling and we're not sure what to think. Let me know if you have any questions for my daughter. We love your channel and she really wanted me to tell you about this incident. Thank you for being you and stay spooky. Hello to you and your daughter. So it definitely could have been what you think it is. It could have been other things as well. I would keep your eye out for anything else that happens. I know you experienced it twice. Keep in mind that multiple things can mimic. Usually things that mimic can't get it exactly right, which is why you'll experience the mechanical thing. The thing that makes me think that it might be worst case scenario is the eerie silence that came after it, because that's really classic with those things. So I would keep an eye out, maybe line some doors and I'm gonna be suggesting black salt consistently throughout my entire life, but I would recommend putting some above the doors and windows just to make sure that your house is safe, and I would ignore it. All right, I think we got time for one more story. This story takes place late last year, but before I can tell it, I have to say that this town that I live in has a weird vibe. I was in my bedroom when this happened, working on my hobby of fixing action figures and talking to a friend on Facebook Messenger late at night when I noticed that it was eerily quiet for a town with dogs who bark late at night. Then I hear howling and barking, but it wasn't a normal dog. It sounded like something trying to mimic the sounds that dogs make. Oddly enough, no dog barked and or howled back. That was the first sign that the animals knew not to engage this thing. I told my buddy that I was hearing this and he told me to bark and howl back to challenge it, and I told him no. After a while, I hear this thing moving towards the conservation area down the road from the school, still howling and barking, and I have a feeling that I've challenged this thing. I would have been sorry. We have a creepy dog story back to back. Ooh. Story number 2. This last weekend, I was reminded of an incident that I had in an old bedroom where I was staying. I wasn't tired, just laying there trying to figure out what to do that night with my eyes closed, and I feel like I'm in a trance. I hear this voice come to me that I'd never heard before. It came to me saying that it was my great uncle, and went on to tell a story that he'd gotten lost in the woods. He was exhausted and hungry. As he was about to give up, a pack of wolves came up to him and helped him to a group of indigenous people, where they gave him food and a place to stay until he was strong enough to go downtown. But before he left, they gave my family the symbol of a wolf. I couldn't believe what happened, so the next day I talked to my dad and I asked him if I had a great uncle who was lost in the woods. I couldn't believe the look on my dad's face when he first heard this. It was like he saw a ghost, and he said, "Yeah, but how did you know that?" I told him and he just smiled. Story number 3. So to give a little backstory on this story, it was at my friend's dad's property. Not only had indigenous people lived there, but there were also slaves who were kept there years and years ago. My friend Jake always told me times when he was younger that he was in the woods deer hunting and he would see indigenous American chiefs. Well, on this property is where they decided to play a Ouija board. My friend's brother had a girlfriend and was so excited that I wanted to play. We didn't have a board though, so she made one out of cardboard. When she was done, I picked it up and the weirdest thing happened. A tingling sensation went to my hand on my arm and down my spine. The tingling wouldn't stop until I let go. I told her what happened. She looked at me and told me, well, we're not going to play it then. She went outside and burned it. My question is, why did the board do that to me? That sounds like something was trying to stop you from playing that board in that area. That's what that sounds like to me. What do y'all think? All right, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow.